Broken Kanu's way, and De Huey's right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh! Can you believe it?
Hello Arsenal fans, and welcome back to a new episode of Can You Believe It, an Arsenal podcast. And we are nearing the end of the season. It's been a real turbulent season at Arsenal. Obviously, we all know that it hasn't been good enough from the club. We've had a lot happen this season, and obviously we haven't been there, the fans, which has obviously been disappointing, obviously because of everything that's happened with the coronavirus and how it's prevented us from going back into the ground. I know there was a couple of earlier games this season. I think there was one game against Burnley which had fans in the stadium, which was nice, but we're starting to return back to some kind of new normal, and fans were in the stadium last night at Palace, and obviously a lot of them were Palace fans. There were a few sprinkled Arsenal fans about, which if you've seen any social media reports. But this is a sort of weird game because it has that sort of end of season vibe about it, but also because the fans are back and the stakes, because it's Roy Hodgson's last home game with Crystal Palace, that the fans were up for it and the players were, in Crystal Palace's case anyway, they were up for it. But let's actually talk about the performance, let's talk about the lineup and everything like we do, and we've got some listener questions at the end as well. So, Mikel Arteta's lineup: Bernd Leno in goal, unsurprisingly, Callum Chambers at right back. I thought that was a switch that could have been a bit difficult because I think Callum Chambers against Wilfried Zaha was going to be a bit of a mismatch if you think of Jefferson Montero all those years ago at Swansea, but I thought he dealt with him quite well actually. Rob Holding and Gabriel at centre back and Kieran Tierney at left back. Thomas Partey and El Neni continued in midfield. I thought it was actually quite good that El Neni got another start. I know after the Manchester United game earlier in the season, El Neni got a start again in the next game against Aston Villa, but it wasn't really good. And then the front four of Nicolas Pepe on the right, Emile Smith-Rowe at 10, Bukayo Saka on the left, and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang up front. So firstly, it was nice to see Pepe come back into the side. I think he's been dangerous in 2021, and I think he proved it in this game, as we'll talk about later. I obviously thought it was on the left, but it made more sense for him to be on the right because Saka, I think, combines better with Tierney than I don't think Pepe will. I think we started the game well. I think the right-hand side especially was getting in some good crosses from Smith-Rowe and from Chambers. There was no one there early on. Palace were up for it, but they did produce some quite nasty challenges and some challenges which I'm shocked didn't get a red. Jeffrey Schlupp in the first 10 minutes had a challenge on Emile Smith-Rowe which could have easily been a red, and when you think about Aubameyang's challenge last season at Palace which got him a red card after being reviewed by VAR, I'm shocked that this wasn't a red card at all. It was only a yellow. You could probably say, oh, it was very early in the game, so that's why it wasn't a red card, but I thought it was a red card. It doesn't matter when in the game it happens. I think a similar incident happened with Bruno Fernandes on Xhaka earlier in the season. That didn't get a red as well, but that was because it was early. So these players can't get away with these type of fouls, and I thought it was pretty bad from Schlupp. It could have really easily hurt Smith-Rowe. Luckily, he was okay. Palace sat deep, as you would expect. It's a Roy Hodgson side, and Roy Hodgson is a really good worker on the training ground with a defensive system. He knows how to coach a team really well in defence, and I think he's done that really well with Palace, because when you think about how Crystal Palace, they have a lot of players that are probably not Premier League standard, and their squad is quite thin but also quite old as well, and I think he's just done a remarkable job for them. So Palace sat deep. It wasn't really surprising, but we looked good in possession. I think we were quite good. We were linking up play quite well. I know we weren't creating an incredible amount of shots, but we were getting in on the left, on the right quite well. There was an incident with Joel Ward who kicked Tierney. I think it was a bit of overacting from Kieran Tierney, if we're going to be honest. I think Ward's trying to kick the ball away and he kicks through Tierney to try and get the ball. Tierney makes the most of it. It's not a red card. I don't think it was. It wasn't something that was replayed in the highlights, so it wasn't really something that was that dangerous, really. And Tierney was then the pantomime villain after that. And I think a lot of people were worried for some reason why Tierney was getting booed and how he would react to it. And I mean, Kieran Tierney's played in many Old Firm games and he's been completely fine and he looks like he relishes it, which we'll talk about when the goal gets to the goal. But like, I mean, Palace looks a threat from set pieces. Benteke had a good header, but he headed over. He was always a threat. He's sort of had a revitalised campaign for Christian Benteke because a lot of people didn't think he had it anymore. But he's been pretty decent this season, and that's good for Palace because they've obviously struggled with strikers over the years. I thought we were passing the ball well and we were good in possession, but I just don't think we were creating enough to have the amount of shots that you want from an Arsenal side. I thought Partey in particular in the first half was passing really well forward. His progressive passing is really good for that. He does well with it. But I think the problem with this Arsenal side is that they just try to create the perfect chance, which is fine if you do it a lot, but you have to start creating at the end of the day. And I think it is a bit too regimented at the moment. And I think that is something that you would hope improves in the future. Because I think with positional play, which is what we play under Arteta, I think it matters a lot where people are and the zones they occupy and everything. But it doesn't allow as much flexibility compared to the jazz football Arsene Wenger used to play, and obviously that's completely different, and that's probably not how modern football's played, but it is something that I think we can improve on. I think we can take more shots. I think we can have a bit more inventiveness, and I think our goal works well. And obviously I mentioned Tierney earlier, he was the pantomime villain and he was heavily involved here. Him and Saka combined well. Saka with a lovely back heel. Tierney running down the line, you always trust him to put in a good cross. Puts in a lovely cross, and Pepe on the penalty spot volleys it in with his right foot, and it's 1-0 to the Arsenal. And there's a few things going on here. I think firstly, Tierney's cross was lovely. He's just someone you trust crossing really well. He's just such a good player with that. But also Pepe's movement as well is really good. I think he's just really good at that, being able to get on the penalty spot and to score these crosses and these tap-ins, really. It was a harder chance than I'm making it sound, but Pepe is really good with his movement to come in from the right, to get on the penalty spot, to get on the end of these crosses. He done it last season against Newcastle. If you remember, he scored a really nice goal against Manchester United last season. He's done it a few times this season, but also he's missed some chances as well. But they're the highest quality of chances with the highest quality of shots. And if he gets into those areas often, he will score goals. And at this point, he had been on 13 goals this season, which is a really good return. I think he only had 10 last season. So I know most of them at this point were in the Europa League, but I think he's definitely improved this season, which is what you want to see from Nicolas Pepe. And I'll talk about him more later on as he was heavily involved with the last goal. After the goal, Benteke had an elbow action to El Neni. Again, I can't believe this wasn't a red card. Benteke knows what he's doing. He basically has an elbow action to El Neni. I'm pretty sure if that was Xhaka or Luiz, they would have got sent off. I can't believe Benteke wasn't sent off. Anthony Taylor was very lenient in this game. I know it's the end of the season, but come on, like that should be a red card, let's be honest. I thought Leno in particular in the first half was really commanding in his goal. He was catching crosses very well. He was making sure that the Palace defenders and the Palace attackers weren't getting the crosses as easy as they could. He was making it difficult for them, which is what you want from your keeper. But we went in at half-time 1-0 up, and even though we hadn't created the amount of chances you'd like, I thought we deserved to go in at half-time. In the second half, we came out and we really silenced the Palace fans. We were good. We were passing out the back well, keeping possession well. Again, that's all nice, but we weren't creating enough chances and we weren't creating enough shots to really affect the Palace goal. And it only takes one chance for Crystal Palace to get back in the game because we were only 1-0 up. And I wrote in my notes here, how are we going to mess this up? And then the next note was Benteke scores, easy header. I think Aubameyang was marking Benteke. I'm not sure why, but it just wasn't really good defending at all. I think it was a good header from Benteke from the free kick. I think it was a stupid free kick to give away anyway from Thomas Partey, who looked a bit leggy in the second half. It was a good header from Benteke. I don't think Leno can be blamed. I saw some people blaming Leno, but again, it's just a really good header. It's difficult for him to save that. And it was 1-1, and this was the period for me where I felt Arsenal lost their way. It seemed like we were fragile. We were allowing Palace possession much easier. We just weren't keeping the ball well. It just wasn't a really good performance from this point. We weren't going forward. It just wasn't really pretty. Palace could have scored another goal if we're being honest. I think Ayew had a chance. He came on for Benteke, who looked a bit injured at the end of the game. He had a header which was tame, but he was saved by Leno. We made a couple of changes. Tierney came off for Granit Xhaka, so it looked like Xhaka went left back, and then Martinelli came on for Partey, so it looked like we did the El Neni one-man midfield option with everyone else around him. We had chances though near the end of the game, and we started to actually wake up. After that Ayew chance, we literally went down the other end and had a really good chance with Aubameyang, and he hits it wide. It was pretty much his only chance of the game. He had been pretty quiet. I felt sorry for him because, again, we should be getting crosses into him. We should be getting him into play because he's a really good finisher. He's got really good movement. But we just didn't do that at all. And this chance, it was difficult for him, but he managed to hit it wide. He could have done better, I think. At least get it on target, make it difficult for Guaita in the goal. But then after that, we score in the 90th minute, and it's just a really, really lovely goal. Odegaard to Pepe, who tries to dribble on the right, passes back to Odegaard, which is good. Odegaard produces a lovely pass to Martinelli, who controls it and then taps it in. It's a really nice goal, and we get the second, and at this point it was pretty much game over because it was really late on. Firstly, the Odegaard pass reminds you of the Mesut Ozil pass against Swansea away from Monreal. You know, the pass that everyone goes on about, how Monreal wasn't even in the picture when Ozil played the pass. It was just a lovely pass from Martin Odegaard. I think that sums it up for me, that Odegaard is just really good at creating chances, and we just look better with him on the pitch. I understand that he's a different kind of player to Emile Smith-Rowe, and maybe he's not as mobile, he's not as good as dribbling as Emile Smith-Rowe, but I just think when you have a player who can produce passes like that, it's someone that you've got to try and keep. And I've been a big advocate on this podcast about keeping Martin Odegaard. I know a lot of people have turned against him. A lot of people have said that he's a bit disappointing, but I just think it's someone that you will miss when we don't have him. And I think he's created the most chances this season for Arsenal since he's came in, and he's obviously only came in January. I think he's created 1.6 chances a game, which is quite good. It's not obviously exceptional elite numbers, but he's doing the business for us. I would like to keep him. I think Real Madrid would ask for a lot. I think if we can get another loan, maybe that would be the best option, and then maybe we can afford him next summer. But obviously, doing this loan thing can be a bit difficult. I think Odegaard likes Arsenal. I think he likes a lot of the Arsenal fans. I like him, and I hope he stays. And he produced a really good moment here for the goal, and it was a massive goal because at this point we had learned other results. So there was a bit of thinking that, we can finish above some other teams. And then we go down the other end right in the last minute and score another goal. And it's a really, really top quality goal from Nicolas Pepe, who gets it on the right. He dribbles past a few players and hits it into the bottom corner. It's a lovely goal, and he rounds off a really good display. He has 19 goal contributions this season. Only Alexandre Lacazette has more. He's tied with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang on 19. He's got 14 goals this season. It's been a really good season for Pepe when you think about it. I know a lot of the start of the season he was pretty poor, but I blame that mainly on the manager because he brought in Willian when Pepe ended the season last season really well, and that must have been a massive knock against his confidence. I've mentioned many times on this podcast, Pepe is a total end product player, and in a team where Arsenal don't have enough players who can produce end product, that's really important. I think if we're going to lose Lacazette this summer, which I don't know what's going to happen with him, but I think Pepe is going to be important with the way we're going forward. Yes, he's not worth £72 million that we paid for him. I understand that, but he's definitely one of our better players and we should use him a lot more. I think Arteta is starting to warm to him. I think his comments after the game about him saying that he's got a different mentality now ring true. I'm really pleased for him. He obviously has the summer off now because he doesn't have an international tournament. I know he has to go to the African Cup of Nations next season in January, which is a bit disappointing. And obviously we lose a lot of players next season. I mean, we lose Partey, we lose Aubameyang, we lose Pepe. These are important players for us, so it will be interesting to see how we cover that next season. Maybe we will have to rely on Martinelli, Smith Rowe, Saka. These are good players as well, so we have the depth for it, and obviously it depends what competitions we're in. If it's just the Premier League, hopefully we can handle it. The final whistle goes, 3-1 to the Arsenal, scoring with our only 3 shots on target, scoring all 3, so it was pretty impressive when you think about it. We only had 6 shots in the game, so it was a bit disappointing in that aspect, but I thought we had some good patterns in play. I don't think it was a terrible performance, but the worrying part is the reaction after the goal. We were definitely rattled. It took us a while to get back into it. I don't think the changes helped, but the changes were so early that we recovered from it late enough to actually grab a result. In terms of where that leaves us, it leaves us 9th. We're 1 point off Everton, who won against Wolves last night, but they lost against Sheffield United on the weekend, which was a big result for us, so we're close to Everton. And Spurs lost last night as well to Aston Villa. Now, Spurs have Leicester on the final day away. Leicester are still going for top 4 themselves. Everton have Manchester City away on the final game of the season. So Arsenal have a chance here. We're in the best form as well. I think actually we're at the second best form. I think Liverpool have a better form than us. We have Brighton on the final day, and that's no easy task at all. I mean, if you know anything about XG, you know how much Brighton will create and you know how much Brighton will do against us. So it will be a tough game. And I am worried about that game. I don't think it's as easy as people are making out. But we do have a chance to finish 7th. And I know a lot of people don't want to finish 7th because of the Europa Conference League. I understand that because I think the Europa Conference League is not the most glamorous tournament. Obviously, if you win it, you only get put into the Europa League. A lot of fans will want us to be without Europe so we can have a clear season and try and get top 4. I think I have a question about that, so I'll temper my thoughts about it. But it's the situation we're in. We could finish above Spurs, and I mean, that's the first time we've done that in a good long time. I think since 15-16 was the last time we finished above Spurs, so that's quite a long time and it's overdue. It would be a good end to the season for us if we could do that. It would be a little consolation prize for a pretty horrid season when you think about it. And it would give us at least some momentum going into next season. Talking about momentum going into next season, I think we have to mention about Gabriel Martinelli and his impact off the bench and how I think he will do next season. I think next season will be a really big one for Martinelli. I think he's always a goal scorer. He always looks a threat. And this is why we should play him more. Play your best players. doesn't matter the age. He came out with a quote last night saying most Arsenal fans would want to see 11 under 20 academy players, and I don't think that's true. I think Arsenal fans just want to see the best players, and they recognise that Gabriel Martinelli is one of the best players that we have. So I think it's important for us to get him more minutes next season. I think if he can contribute a whole season, I think he can get 10 goals, especially in a team which is crying out for goals as well. I think Pepe can get 10 goals as well. I think next season will be important for Martinelli and important for his development. Remember, he's only 19 years old, and I think a lot of people are thinking he's going to leave or want to leave. I think he's still got a long way to go and he's got a lot of time, but I'm pleased with his reaction off the bench because it shows that he's still involved. He's such a game changer for us, and the amount of money we spent on him, we could probably get at least double that, probably triple that now if we wanted to sell him. So he's a real valuable asset to us and valuable for our future. Before I answer all your questions, I really want to mention, if you have liked this episode and like my content, please like it on iTunes and review it on iTunes. It really helps the podcast grow. Like it on YouTube, give me a comment on YouTube. Please share it around, it gets more people involved. And if you want your question answered, please look out for a tweet after the game at AFC Met on Twitter. I usually post it after the game, so there'll be one more podcast now, and then we'll do more content over the summer, which I mentioned already. Anyway, so let's get into the questions. And the first question is from at AFC Jack 1998, regular contributor to the questions on this podcast. Will Pepe bang next season? And he also sent me a DM with another message, which was Buendia on a permanent and Odegaard on loan, or do you do one or the other? So I'll answer the first question. So Pepe has set himself up for a good season next season. I think he could do really well next season. I think he's had a good season this season. I think Pepe is a good player. I think he's rough around the edges when it comes to his technical ability. I don't think he's really good for that. I think Saka's much more accomplished in that. But I think in terms of end product, I don't think there's anyone better than Pepe. I think he gets goals, he gets assists, and I think in a team which lacks that, I think that's really important. I think Pepe will be a good player for us next season. I think if he can get 10 league goals, that would be a real sign of progress from Nicolas Pepe. Obviously, it depends on how we are in Europe, if we are in Europe next season, and if we aren't, then his game time might be a bit more limited. But if he is, then he might have more game time in the league. He'll definitely play in Europe, you'd think, which could definitely get him some goals. I think it would be fun for us to see him really explode. And I think a lot of people are optimistic about Pepe, and I am. Like I said, he's not worth the £72 million that we pay for him. I think most people understand and get that, but I think he's done a pretty good job this season, and I think to be the second highest in terms of goal contributions this season just shows how good Pepe has been. So I know it hasn't been a really good season for Arsenal on the whole, but I think Pepe definitely since 2021 has done much better. To answer your other question, so to give a bit of context about Buendia, Charles Watts came out today and said that Arsenal are eyeing up Buendia and Edu is ready to do the deal. Buendia is keen on joining Arsenal. It's an Odegaard alternative. Now, I think people have to bear this in mind. Buendia has mainly played off the right. I think a lot of people assume that when he comes to Arsenal, he will play at number 10. That's not a guarantee. We don't know that. Again, as well, that also hurts the development of someone like Emil Smith-Rowe. I think Smith-Rowe has deserved to be starting. I think he's one of our better players. I know we need creativity, but he's been pretty good ever since he came into the side. In terms of what I would do, in a dream world, you sign Odegaard maybe on loan for another year and Buendia on a permanent. Then you have a lot of creative talent in the side and the technical ability of the side goes up. I don't think we'll do that. I think it will be one or the other. I think just because of purely a position, I think I would sign Odegaard, because I think at least Odegaard can play at number 10 and it doesn't disrupt Saka on the right. It doesn't disrupt Emile Smith-Rowe, who's very comfortable playing off the left. I think if you bring Buendia in, I think it is going to be difficult to push Buendia in the centre, because I don't think he's going to be 100% comfortable. He could play on the left, but we have no history or no evidence. Now, he could fit in like a duck on water on the left or at number 10. But at least with Odegaard, he's proven at number 10 that he at least can play that role and do a good job and do well for us. And I think a lot of Arsenal fans have been a bit harsh on him. I think that was his first assist for us. He's still creating chances. That's the most important thing. It's difficult because I think in a dream world you sign both, but I don't think we'll sign both. So I'm leaning more towards Odegaard just because I've seen him more. I've seen him in this Arsenal side. I see what he can do. I don't think that's the most exciting thing, because I think ultimately a lot of people just want shiny new toys. So they've seen Odegaard, they liked him before, but he's old news now. They want Buendia. And I get that because everyone loves the shiny new toy, but I think you've got to think about it in a squad building term. And I think if Buendia is not comfortable playing at number 10, and if the plan is to play him at number 10 and he's not comfortable with, then we should move on from him, because we need to find someone who will fit into our side. We can't be producing square pegs in round holes. Now, I know a lot of you will be screaming that Saka can play on the left, Pepe can play on the left. And I think that's the only thing that I would do. If you have Buendia and Pepe as right wing options, if you have Saka and Martinelli as left wing options, Smith-Rowe as your 10 option, it's good depth. That's assuming that Willian goes, and that's assuming that someone like Lacazette or Nketiah goes in the summer. But obviously that's not a given. We don't know if that's going to happen or not. You'd like to think that could happen, but I hope it does as well, because Willian, there's been reports about him leaving, and that would obviously be great because the deal has been a disaster, and I think it would just be best for him to move on any way we could. Saka is obviously effective from the left, as we saw last night as well. He looks a bit tired, so I understand if he wasn't the Saka we 100% know, but I'm glad that it is an option. Again, I would love to see Buendia join. I'd love to see Odegaard stay. At least we have options to improve our creativity, and at least it's something that the board have identified as important for Arsenal. But thanks for your question, Jack. And I got another question here from @PureVisions, and they ask, do you want us to make Europe or go a season without? I think it's difficult because a lot of people have gone on about it. I think I've done a poll last night, and I think the majority of people want us out of Europe. I think if you could tell me now that a season out of Europe would guarantee us top 4, I'd take it, because then we would be back in the Champions League next season. It would help us, but I'm not convinced that will happen. So even if we have a season out of Europe, there's no guarantee that Arsenal will finish in the top 4. I hope we do, but there's absolutely zero guarantee that that happens. So if that doesn't happen, then being in Europe would be good, because, again, it's another chance to get into Europe the following season. It's another chance at a European trophy, and I understand people don't like that, but winning trophies is important, and Arsenal haven't done that enough, especially in Europe, and it would be on par with the biggest trophy we've won in Europe, the Cup Winners' Cup. So I think I would want us to be in Europe. I know a lot of people will disagree, and that's completely fine, but I would rather be in Europe. We have the chance to play some young players that could benefit us. So Aziz, Balogun, even Joe Willock as well, who's had a really good loan spell at Newcastle. These are players that we can see more about, see if they can push their game up to another level. I think there are positives either way anyway. If we're not in Europe, then we have a 38-game season, which we can crack at. We will have more rest than our so-called rivals above us. I mean, West Ham are pretty much guaranteed, I'd say, getting into Europe, especially the Europa. Obviously, one of Leicester or Chelsea or Liverpool will be in the Europa. So these are fixtures that will affect them. It would obviously mean more Saturday games as well, because Arsenal won't be playing on a Sunday anymore. These are all things that could happen next season, and it could benefit us. But with no guarantee that it would benefit us, I think I would rather take the chance of going into a competition where we know we could try and win a trophy. I understand the Europa Conference League is not the most exciting. I understand people would turn their noses up against it. That's completely fine. I understand that. But again, if we end up winning it, then I'm sure people will celebrate it as much as another trophy. Again, it's not the most glamorous, but it's a trophy at the end of the day. So I'm happy to see us in Europe. But if we're not, fair enough. Let's just finish the season strong. If we finish above Spurs, that would be fantastic. But thanks for your question. And last question from @MysticSL. And they ask, favourite ever Arsenal alternative kit? So this is a really good question. I love kits. I've collected a lot of kits over my time. I think I have about 26 kits, Arsenal kits anyway, over my time. Maybe one day I'll post on YouTube the actual full kit collection. That could be a fun video. I don't think I could do a top 1. I'm going to do a top 5 just because I absolutely love some of the alternative kits that Arsenal have had. They're probably my favourites. I think most of them will be yellow kits, just because I think Arsenal are so nice in yellow. I think if I had to do a top 5, I think in 5th place would be the 1920 away shirt. So that's the remake Bruised Banana shirt. That was just a lovely shirt. 4 is the 10-11 away shirt. Again, another yellow shirt, but it was yellow and maroon. It was a really nice shirt. I think we used it the season after as well as a 3rd kit with the 125 anniversary badge, which was really nice, even if we used it in a game against AC Milan, which we got battered. I think 3rd is the Invincibles away kit, so the 03-04 away kit. I think it's just such a lovely kit. I think it just brings back so many memories. And for me, that was my first ever Arsenal shirt. I sadly no longer have it because it was a kid's version, so it wouldn't fit me anymore, but I gave it away. But it was a lovely shirt. Absolutely loved it when I was a kid. And for it to be my first shirt, I have special memories of it. And obviously it being the shirt that the Invincibles wore, so Henry, Perez, Vieira, Bergkamp, it made it extra special, and we used it the season after as well, so you saw someone like Fabregas wear it as well, which was quite nice. And then top 2, I think number 2 will surprise people that it's not number 1. I think it's the original Bruised Banana. I'm not quite sure the season. I think it's 92, 93 potentially. It's a lovely shirt. I mean, I have the remake version of it, which is the version that Arsenal released the first season Adidas came out. It's a lovely shirt. I'm really cautious about wearing it just because it's such a good shirt and I really just don't want to get it dirty. So it's a really good shirt. I really enjoy it. The patterns on it, and obviously a lot of people hated it back in the day, but I think it's become an iconic kit. And I think number 1, again, this is all yellow list. It's the away shirt in 2013-14, so the yellow shirt, yellow and blue. Now, obviously, it brings back vibes of that Invincibles season kit, but I just think they expand on it very well. It was obviously the first season of Mesut Ozil. I luckily have a shirt with Ozil on the back of it. It's a really great shirt. It's probably one of my favourite shirts of all time. I just like smart shirts like that. It's a really good shirt. So that's probably my favourite alternate kit. I think if we have some honourable mentions as well, I think the 17-18 third shirt, which is the grey, blackish and pink, which was really nice. I think next season's away shirt will be a classic as well, with the cannon on the side. If the yellow was dark, it would probably be an all-time classic, but they've smashed it out of the park as well, so that's an honourable mention as well. And finally, I think the blue lightning shirt in the 90s, you know which one I'm talking about, was really, really nice, and it's completely rare to get a hold of, so I think that's another honourable mention as well. So I know that was quite a long-winded answer for a kit question, but I absolutely love Arsenal kits and football shirts in general, so I think those are my answers. So thanks for your question. And that's the end of the podcast. Obviously, we have one more game left on Sunday against Brighton at home. Hopefully, we can finish the season strong. If you're going to the Arsenal game, I hope you enjoy it. It should be a fun one, at least with the fans there. It will be a bit of a carnival atmosphere. Hopefully, we can finish above Spurs. That would be really good. But until then, come you Gunners.
Well, it's broken Kanu's way, and De Hu is right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh!